That music is so scary.
It is. It does kind of feel like a countdown. Like I mean, it is a countdown, but
something's about to happen. I don't know. Hi, Dan Tate. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm so good. I appreciate Dan and I have other meetings throughout the day, and we happened to literally just get off of one like 20 seconds ago. And in that meeting, he blurred out his background so that we couldn't see anything behind him. But in this meeting, he can't do that. So we get to like nitpick his background and like talk about
really see the real me.
And I love it for you, Dan. I absolutely love it.
I'm sure.
You know who's here today, and I'm so excited, right?
I'm very excited.
I know. It's going to be so much fun. We have Henry. We're going to talk. Henry, I'm going to let him introduce himself when we bring him in, but he's so great, and he's done so much theater across the world, and he is amazing, and I cannot wait to start the conversation. So should we bring him in, or should we just talk about him?
I think we should keep just talking about him, and then we can bring him in just to say hi, and then
at the very end. Yeah, like we'll just talk about him for 28 minutes, and then he'll come in and go, thank you. Good night.
I mean, that's what you're supposed to do with guests, right?
Exactly. All right, here he comes. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Bam. He's here.
Hi.
Hi, Henry.
Hello.
Oh, it's so good to see your face.
Oh, it's good to see your face.
All right, Henry, let's just start with like an introduction. Tell us who Henry is.
Well, my name's Henry, he, him, and I've been just acting and directing, doing theater, scenic design for a few years, and more like 20, I think, 20 plus. And so, yeah, I love telling stories. So this is me.
Get involved, like, because I might be overstepping a little, but if I understand correctly, you sort of were late in going to school, or at least going to college. So like, what was the process that got you to where you are?
Well, so I actually have a degree in graphic design. That's actually the first degree that I got. And then ever since I was little, my mom would always put me in community theater shows because she was in them, or my brothers were in them. And so I would always, kind of tag along. And then as I got older, and I just love theater. I love telling, again, like I said, I love telling stories. So I was actually losing my job. And so, because the workplace that I was going, where I was working, they were downsizing. So I was like, you know what? I want to go back to school and really focus on what it is that I love, and that's theater. And so, yeah, I went when I was 30 and went into the BFA program at Southern Utah University. So, yeah.
And you were at SUU, you graduated, and now we are lucky enough to have you. How you've directed for us. You're amazing. We absolutely love you. But we're not here to really talk about OPA. We're just here to talk about community.
Checks in the mail.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah. I will say that this is weird, but I don't care. I'm going to share. So Henry interviewed a long time ago at this point. For the first time you interviewed here, it was, I don't even know, 2 years ago at this point when and he sent his resume in, and it had a headshot attached because that's what good people do in the theater world. And I totally stalked you. Like, I hardcore stalked you to find out who you were and learn all about you. And I was like, okay, we're going places with. I learned so much about you through social media. It was just a joy.
Oh no, I'm just kidding.
Brandon, that's a little creepy. I mean, not just a little creepy. That's a lot creepy.
Just don't go on my Twitter account. No, I'm just kidding.
Every single one of us stalks people. It's not that.
Oh yeah, I did.
Isn't that the first thing you do? You hear a new name and you're like, what do they look like?
I know them.
Oh yeah, that's what we do.
Our education director, Tiffany, who Henry also knows, she is like the fastest Googler I know. Like, we can literally be talking about a subject and she'll be like, oh, that was in 1842. Is it 720? Like, bam. It's like she's like got a computer chip in her brain that automatically pulls it up for her. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am interested because you've worked in different places, at different community theaters, different all over the place. I'm interested to find out from you what the word sort of like community theater means to you. Like, what is that idea and how is it different outside of Utah?
Well, I mean, community theater to me, it delivers what it promises. It's, it's the whole community coming together to create art at, varying different levels. I've worked in New Jersey a lot, and their community theater scene is very vibrant. Like, they take it super serious. And it's kind of like Utah in that way, because every community theater show I've been to, I've seen nothing but passion and just like strict professionalism, where people really want to engage audiences as well as each other. I think that's what's really great about community theater, is that you have people from all these different skill sets, and they all come together and learn and just grow off of each other. And I think that's one of the most important things about community theater.
One of the things that I find so interesting about community theater, and it's pretty similar anywhere I've been, but it's this idea that these people are giving up their time, their energy, sometimes their money, to buy costumes or things like that, to do this and for the greater good. And I don't know about the rest of you, but sometimes have an existential crisis when I think, why do we do theater? Like, why is this a thing that we do? And then I think about all of these people that come together every night to rehearse or to come see a show, and I'm like, that's like, I always have to sort of go back to this moment of, that's why, that's the moment. It's not necessarily the other things, but.
Right. Well, I think also that it really promotes like this sense of being together, and kind of like we're on the battlefield. And even though it's a play or a musical, we as actors and performers, we grow. We see the behind the scene things, and all the things that are funny to us, and all the mistakes, and that's how we grow in our camaraderie with one another and how we connect with each other. And sometimes you don't really find that in the professional world of theater. And that's what I actually love the most about community theater, is that sense that we are all in this together, whether it's financial or, gathering props and whatnot. Whereas, in the professional world, it's like, it's all taken care of for you. And sometimes you can get jaded. And so, yeah, that's why I love community theater.
Dan, do you want to tell us why you love community theater?
So I have similar stories. As I've worked in behind the scenes, and I think we've all kind of done that, and also been on stage, and I think that some people, or at least I've been told, that the perception is, oh, performers, you're just all about the spotlight, and you just want to be in front of everybody. And it's interesting that the more I get involved and the more theater I do, the less that's true. It's not about being in the spotlight. It's exactly what you guys say. It's about, hey, it's about getting together with a group of people who have a common goal and working as a group to achieve that goal the best that you can. I've said this to a lot of different people, but by the time the show's ready to perform, I'm done. I don't need to perform, because I've had the most fun creating and being part of that community that cast created, that I don't even need to do the show anymore.
I thought you were literally just going to end with, I'm done. I've rehearsed it. I'm done.
CX strike.
Right?
Yeah.
Good luck without me.
But I think that's what's so important, is when, we see people who are really involved with their productions, when they have that passion, and when the audience comes in to see it, they see that passion. Not only do they see the story, costumes, lighting, but all of that, they see how much fun the cast is having, and it's infectious. And so they're more willing to join in and have their own suspension of disbelief. And so I think it's very important. So yeah, you brought up a very good point, Ben.
One of the things I always talk about when I talk about theater is my parents, because when I decided to major in theater in college, when I was, 19 or 20. My parents were mortified. I mean, like, this was the end of the world, right? Because there was just no way that I could, first of all, make a living, or this is something I wouldn't make it through, blah, blah, blah. And for years, even when I was working professionally at places like Cirque or in, going on tours, my parents really didn't get the idea of the community behind it, and how we didn't just show up on Saturday morning and go, you know what we should do tonight? Let's do Beauty and the Beast. Everybody come, let's just do Beauty and the Beast tonight. And I think, to Dan's point, one of the most amazing things about community theater is it's all of the pre-show moments. It's all of that coming together and learning about each other and accepting each other and loving each other. And the performance is almost just like extra icing. It's not even the icing. It's like extra icing, if that's a good analogy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Henry, you've worked in different community theaters and different professional theaters. Like, do you have any really good horror stories you can tell us? You don't have to say names, but like, do you have any like terrible moments in theater that you would love to tell us about?
Oh, I mean, I have like genuine horror stories that you'd be like, no, I never want to do this again. But you also have like the fun ones. Like, I've been in shows where one of my good friends, we were doing a forum. Funny thing happened on the way to the forum, and in the middle of the performance, the heel of her shoe got stuck in the stage, and so she was supposed to leave, and all of a sudden she's like, "Excuse me, can you help me?" It was like I was like, "What is happening?" It was like the weirdest thing. I have way too many horror stories. Most of them involve me falling. I fall all the time. I remember this one performance. I was doing this dinner theater show in New Jersey, and it was the very end. And I remember I was thinking to myself that there was like 30 seconds left, and I was like, "Man, I nailed this performance. What a good show!" Like, I'm doing my thing, dancing. I had to go out into the audience, and then I come back onto the stage, and I fall dead center. Everybody looked and saw me, and I was embarrassed and mortified, also because they filmed that night, and so it's immortalized forever. But yeah, I have a lot of falling stories. It's so great.
Dan, tell us yours.
Well, it's fairly recent. I was recently a little over a year ago, almost 2 years ago, in Drowsy Chaperone. And because first of all, I feel a little out of place here, because you guys can grow such awesome facial hair and I can't. So I couldn't grow my own mustache. I was Aldolfo, and so I couldn't grow my own mustache. So I had to get one and glue it on. But I mean, if you're wearing false facial hair, the chances of it getting through the entire show without falling off is practically none. And there was a scene where we had to freeze, and I was partially bent over when I froze. And every time I'd breathe, my mustache would catch a little bit of that air coming out of my nose, and it'd start to push my mustache until it just fell to the ground. And trying to stay frozen during that was quite the challenge, especially because other people were looking at me and laughing as well.
I also have a mustache story. It wasn't involving me. I was doing Fiddler, and this guy came on, and he had his mustache like glued like this. I don't know why, but it did not fit his face. And he said something to me, and part of it fell off. And I didn't. Sometimes I'm that bad actor who does not hide what happens. And as soon as it came off, I literally went. On his face, like, what is happening? I felt bad, but like, it was too funny. I had to.
Those are good stories. I don't have any. Everything's been perfect in my theater.
I'm sure.
So what do you think a community theater brings to its community? I mean, past the actual community theater participants, what does a community theater or theater in general bring to our communities?
I mean, they bring a lot. I mean, the community theaters, they should be a reflection of the community itself. It should, showcase not only the talent, but it also should tell their stories. And that way they can connect and grow from it. I think that's one of the most important things about community theaters in their communities.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one of the things I've learned over the last few years is we've been working on a very large project, is how much not only just like community it brings together, but like every person that goes to a theater on average spends about $30 outside of the theater before or after the show. Like goes to dinner or, gets gas, those sorts of things. And like to me, like I don't know why I never processed like just like the financial benefits of theater in the world, but like they're big, right? As weird as that is for me to bring up, but it's one of the things I think about often, actually. So, and I think for us, like as we've gotten bigger here at OPA, like getting to know our sponsors, getting to really like understand like how they're involved in the community, it's created a larger community among us, like, and those people. And so that's really great. So
well, right. Yeah, I mean, you're opening connections with businesses that you probably wouldn't have in the past. And now that you're growing and you're bringing in more people to be a part of the community, it just grows and creates these networks and this camaraderie, and it's great.
What do you think the downfalls of community theater are?
Well, I mean, there's some.
Sure.
I think the downfalls with community theater is sometimes there's kind of I wouldn't say a lack, but that's kind of how it feels sometimes, of either representation in the actual community, or just representation in general. Sound like a downer. I did see a community theater show. It wasn't at OPA. I won't even say where it was. It was a phenomenal production. I actually loved it. And as a director, kind of stole a couple of ideas from them. But I remember sitting there thinking that, I didn't see myself up there on that stage. And that was one of the first times where I was like, I don't feel represented. But that was okay, because they still did an amazing job and presented a really great production. But I also felt that sense of, I'm not being represented. And I feel like that is one of the key things in community theater. If they're supposed to be reflective of the community that they are in, they should invite everybody to the table.
How do we change it? How do we change that idea? Because listen, I'm not calling anybody, and I'm not saying OPA is perfect either, but there are lots of community theaters in the world that can't or don't have that representation. How do we change it and keep producing art?
I think one of the key things to changing it is through education. Theater, itself is a great teacher. It teaches us everything, whether it is we're an audience member or we're in the shows performing or designing it. It teaches us. And so I feel like in order to reach out to the community, to get more representation, we have to start with ourselves and educating us and how we need to approach other people and how we get them. And then it starts with programming. What kind of shows do we want to put on that will include everyone in the community? You guys just did Dreamgirls. Like, that show is hardly ever done in Utah, especially in community theater settings. And you guys did it, and it was a great production. And the representation that you guys put on that stage was amazing. And so I feel like that was a wonderful step. Some theaters don't even have that, where it's, whether they want to engage with the audiences of shows they already have, or, it's all about programming and education.
Dan, go ahead. I see you thinking.
Yeah. You see me thinking? That's impressive. So one of the things that I always find interesting is that within the landscape of community theater, frequently, or call it just theater, that frequently you find a lot of lack of community around theaters. People tend to be territorial. Why do you think that is, and what can we do to get past it?
You mean territorial and like how they produce their shows or their programming, or?
Well, like you want to make sure that you think that there's other. I think sometimes you can feel territorial about, are we doing the same shows in the same year? Do we allow our actors to move back and forth freely, or do we want to try and hold on to them because we don't want to lose them to some other theater, or
I see.
things like that.
I mean, I have experienced the territorialness of theater. When you find actors, you want to hold on to them, and going to other places and doing the shows that fit those people. But at the same time, we live at a time when there's millions of different stories, and you can go and find them and find people that fit those parts. I think it's more important that we open up and see the other perspectives of other lives. I think that helps a lot. I don't know if that answered your question. I hope it did.
I just had the worst editing moment ever on that moment. I don't know if you all saw it, but we were all like squished together. I'm so sorry. It was a beautiful answer.
It was very,
I know. I'm so sorry. It was my fault. I mean, to sort of add on to that is how do theaters change, sort of, take the steps to make these changes when audiences would rather go see Cinderella? I mean, I don't know if that's the perfect show example, but like we want to see Seven Brides for Seven Brothers or Oklahoma or any one of those classics that have, in my opinion, and this is probably a discussion for another day, but in my opinion, they have some pretty terrible themes running through them. But it seems like that's what the communities want to see. So how do we get our audiences to come see different stories, do you think? I mean, there's no perfect answer, so don't feel like we're writing this down and this is the end.
I feel like we're grilling Henry pretty intently here. I mean,
right.
Come on, Henry.
Sorry. I'll try my best. I think it starts with having the conversation, not just with the community, but with the organization itself. I think that we need to, as organizations, we have to have those conversations of, how do we reach out to these people? Well, I want to, find these playwrights. I want to find these performers. I want to find these rich stories that we haven't, seen or heard. Yes, Cinderella, since you brought it up, it's a great show. That was one of the first shows I was in when I was a little kid. I was that little boy in the Rodgers and Hammerstein version of Cinderella. So it's in my heart. But there are so many other stories of Cinderella. There's even different versions of Cinderella from different perspectives. And I think when we look outside our own perspective and see someone else, that starts to change. And that's what community theater is so great in doing. And I think also if you start blending in some of those programming, you can have Cinderella, but maybe have, you guys are putting on Rent. So you're doing it, you're mixing in and starting to grow and build your audiences, which I think is smart.
Well, that's kind of you. We'll send you a check later for all the
right.
Okay, so I'm going to lighten it up a little. I want to know if there is a moment in your life that you can recall that was the moment you knew you wanted to do theater. Because I'll tell you mine. While you think, I'm going to tell you mine. Okay. That was not in the pre-planned questions. I'm so sorry. Dan, you're going to answer it too. But mine was when I was in 10th or 11th grade. My band went on a field trip to San Francisco where we saw some shows. We didn't have a theater program in my high school, so we went to some band festival. I don't know, something band people did. We went to band camp, and anyway, the first time we were there, we saw Phantom of the Opera in the professional sit-down tour or whatever that was in San Francisco. And I'll never forget the moment when they revealed the chandelier and the overture started and you felt it deep in your soul. And that will always live in my memory as one of the reasons I do theater, because that made me feel so many things as like an angsty 11th grader that that was it for me. So do you have a moment like that?
I honestly, I don't remember, because one of my first theater things that I remember was I was 2, and I used to think that my grandma's fireplace was a stage. And so I used to pretend to be doing shows on that like all the time. And I think my mother used to take me to the Nutcracker when I was a kid at Ballet West. And so I've always just had theater in my life. And so I don't know if there was like this moment where I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing that for the rest of my life. It's just, it was always there. And it's just kind of what I've always done, if that makes sense. I know that was really boring. That was a boring answer.
I'm loving it because I'm imagining you as a child playing on the fireplace, and it's like my favorite thing that's ever happened. So it's
I have a picture.
Days. It's gonna.
I'll send you the picture. I have it.
I cannot wait.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, you're up.
So I have my stories similar but different from Henry's. Going back to my dad's extended family, we used to spend a lot of time together. They were really close when I was younger, and I had a couple of cousins who were about my age, and every time we got together, we would plan to music a little program, and that's what we would do. And then we'd invite all the aunts and uncles out to the yard, and we'd do this stupid little, like, it was dumb. Like,
and I'll bet your aunts and uncles loved that.
I'm sure they thought it was the best ever.
I did the same thing, Dan.
But that, but that never really translated into, well, I want to do theater. And then I got into high school and did a couple of productions there, and somewhere back in the back of my mind, I thought this would be really cool to do. But similar, Brandon, to your parents, like my parents, like, okay, well, but there's only a very, very small percentage of people can actually turn that into a career. And so I kind of left it and went to do other things. And then my wife and I, Jen, got married, and Davis Arts Council was back when they produced a musical every summer. They were doing West Side Story. And so we decided to do that together and had a lot of fun. And so at that point I was like, I remember how much I like this. Then we had kids and life got busy, and I was away from theater for a very long time. And then finally my kids got a little bit older, and I started to have a little bit of time that I could spend on theater, and luckily was, I don't know if coerced is the right word, but I was asked to audition for Forever Plaid, and haven't looked back since. I mean, it's really fun to be, and for me, it's not about the performing. It's not about any of that. It's about the community that surrounds theater that really has got me hooked.
Well, I happened to be at Dan's audition when he was coerced into Forever Plaid, so he was delightful, and we were all like, "We have to have him." And now he's like, "Dang it! Why did I drive in that day?"
Listen, there's a lot of actors in this world that were coerced into doing something, and now they're like big and famous. So you never know.
Dan is big and famous, at least around here. I mean,
he is.
He's pretty famous, at least to 3 people.
His name is Dan Tate. You can't just say Dan. It's Dan Tate.
That's true. I do notice
right
that Henry Brandon Dan Tate.
Dan Tate.
Yeah.
Full name.
There it is.
Unless his wife is mad at him, then she says, Daniel.
And everybody at the theater looks at her like, who are you talking to? That's
right.
All right, Henry, as a wrap-up question, I want to know what the term community matters means to you.
Community matters. I mean, it matters to me, like how I see it, why community matters to me is it's how we involve everybody. It's how we get our families involved. like Dan was saying, he did a show with his wife. I've met my family doing community. As I get emotional, like some of the people I love most in my life, I've done doing community theater. And so that's what matters to me, is that it's family, and we go together and create art, have fun, and tell stories, which I think is so important.
Henry, you're a gem.
Oh, you're a gem. Thank you.
It's you. Well, thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate your words and some great insights. Super excited. Dan apparently doesn't want to talk. He has muted himself. It's fine, Dan. It's no problem.
I have dogs that are here, and they decided to start wrestling each other.
Well, that's fun. All right, Henry. Well, thank you again, and we absolutely appreciate you, and we'll see you soon, I hope.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love this. Thank you so much.
Goodbye, Henry. Okay, how much do I love Henry? Like, can we just talk about that?
Can I just say, like, we've done this now. This is our third week, and I feel like the past couple of weeks, it's like must have just been a warm up, because I feel like Henry got on and we're like, all right,
yeah,
give us some answers.
I decided to be more Barbara Walters today and really really go for it. Also, I was taking notes. I was like, Henry says we should do this, so I'm sure that that's the right thing.
Right? Well, and for me, it's really nice to hear other perspectives. I mean, my involvement in theater has been, I've been back involved for 3 years now, and it's pretty structured, or right now centered around OPA because of my involvement, but it's good. It's good. I don't know if good's the right word, but it's interesting to hear that I think theaters across the nation struggle with the same things that we do here.
Sure.
So
totally agree. Well, and next week we have Josh Penzel, who has worked professionally in New York and across the country. He's a fantastic director. He got his MFA from Las Vegas, from UNLV. So we're going to talk to him more about professional theaters and all of those things. So that's something to look forward for next week. I know, right? I'm so excited.
I'm excited about that.
All right, Dan, do you have anything you want to say to the people before we say goodbye? Questley just shimmied behind my camera in case anybody wanted to know that information. Live, Questley shimmied.
Hi, Questley.
Hi.
I told you they were fighting.
Well, this has been a pure joy moment for all of us. And as we always say, make sure to go out and see theater. Theater matters. It matters now. It's so important in our communities and for people around us. So support live theater and the arts, whether it be at OPA or other theaters. Find a place to support the arts. It matters. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Bye. Bye, Dante.
Bye. See ya.